Hey guys, and welcome back. My name is James, and today we'll be using coffee to dye or stain, more precisely, to coffee stain leather. We'll be making these two little card holders just to see the effect that it gives on vegetable tanned leather. I will be walking you through every single step of the process and discussing those steps with you as we go. Hopefully you learn as much as I did along the way, because it was indeed quite an interesting process. Enjoy. Oh, PS guys, at the end of the video I have added in, again, that little coffee making excerpt for the ASMR people out there. So if you're into that, why don't you just hang along right at the end of the video and let me know what you think in the comments below.
So first of all, we're going to be making some really nice coffee. I'm using some relatively good coffee beans, much to the dismay of my girlfriend, for the first few, and I did switch it up afterwards for some much more regular coffee and much cheaper stuff. I mean, I was actually quite surprised how much coffee you really need to do this. So if you have decided to try it out at home, go for some cheap coffee. You really don't need anything, and bear in mind guys that the coffee afterwards is going to be thrown away, and this, yes, it's quite heartbreaking, but it is unfortunate that you have to get rid of the coffee afterwards. You just don't know what has been inside the leather as way of preparing it, so just be on the safe side. Don't reuse the coffee, unfortunately. You could also try keeping the coffee for other projects. Bear in mind that coffee does go bad after a few days and can grow mold, so I don't recommend keeping it too long, although it should last a good week or so in the fridge. So if you want to try different projects with the same batch of coffee, that's also a great way of doing it. I'll be leaving in these pieces of leather first for 24 hours, sorry, and then 48 hours. Or was it 12 hours? I can't remember. Well, I've written it down in video, but the idea was to test out on different lengths of time to see what the difference it would make in colouring. And, well, you'll see the results, But while this is being done, I must mention that Make Supply also have a great little video tutorial on how to do this. Ironically, as I was researching this specific way of dyeing or staining precisely leather, there we go, 12 hours versus 48 hours. Can you see the difference? I can't. So as I was researching this, I couldn't actually find many videos, and that's why I went ahead and started doing this about 4 weeks ago. And I've noticed today that 3 weeks ago Make Supply have a great little video as well. So there we go, great minds think alike, I suppose. Go ahead and go and check out the links in the description for that. So as you see, the regular coffee just wasn't doing it for me. I was expecting something much darker, so I decided to go ahead and give it a second go, this time using some ready-made, some instant coffee, and I poured out 100 grams and added 400 ml. No, scratch that, just go ahead and overdo it, let's overkill it. So from 100 grams I go to the whole 200 grams of that pack with 400 ml of water, and this gives me a very syrupy type of mixture. The whole idea was that the original dye or staining just wasn't dark enough. I was expecting something way darker than that, and it just wasn't doing it for me. So I go ahead and pour out my mixture, and at this point this is just stupidly strong. It is just ridiculous. It's more like a syrup. Then you can see how syrupy it is, and yes, syrupy is the good word. Basically, as I discovered, coffee seems to have more sugar than I want to admit, or at least is the soluble version. I did check, and the soluble version said it was 100% soluble coffee, and clearly there was nothing added apparently onto it. But hey, let that sit for another 48 hours. And at this point, these pieces of leather have been sitting in some type of coffee for about 4 days, I'd say, total. One of them was 12 hours, then 48 hours. Then all of them was another additional 48 hours. So they've been sitting in coffee quite some time. And as you can see, I'm having to really work at getting this coffee off, because it's very syrupy. Again, very, weird texture. But it actually takes quite some work, surprisingly enough. I spent quite a few days working on this. So I wanted to get rid of the excess while it was drying. And this is when I noticed just how syrupy and how much sugar there was in there. Can you see that white foam developing there? That, I think, is due from the sugars inside the coffee. And this will have a very adverse effect. It makes the whole thing incredibly hard and brittle. Basically, the sugars have crystallized, and I'm not happy at all with this. And I did a small bend test on a corner, and the corner just snapped. There you go, you can see it there. It just completely snapped in my fingers. These are very, very hard pieces of leather and completely unusable. You can try adding oils, you can do whatever you want, but no, completely unusable. I love the color. I love the color, however. So I decide that if indeed it is sugars that are making it brittle, I will try and get rid of the sugars by soaking them in water again. This time trying to get rid of all the extra coffee, the soluble coffee at least, that was the idea, that may have permeated inside the pores and the fibers of the leather. This is just after one soak. Can you see how dark that water has gone? That's just insane. It's just insane how much coffee is actually in there, but already the leather is feeling much more supple. So I go ahead and give them a few cycles of this washing in just clear water, alternating, it's lukewarm water. Just to help soften up the fibers and get that coffee out of it. And as you can see, the bowl is already full of dirty water, basically. Now repeat this process 2 or 3 more times just to make sure you get all the excess coffee out, and that is the result. The final pieces are much more pliable, but we are losing a lot of that initial gorgeous dark rich coffee color, which I was liking. This is to show you the difference between the natural vegetable tanned leather, and the coffee stained leather, and it really isn't as much as I would have hoped. So, well, let's just carry on and move on here. I'll show you a different thing afterwards, but it just wasn't as dark as I'd hoped. I'm using Saphir Renovateur here to add in some more oils and to keep the whole piece nourished and hopefully keep it in good condition. But I will show you the other way, the more traditional way of dyeing leather, because this is just simply too long, and it's a fun process, but it takes a long time. So the more normal way, usual way, is to go either with water stains or alcohol stains, alcohol dyes. And in this case, I'm going to be using the water dye, the EcoFlow, because it's the most readily available. You can find it at most places that do leathercraft supplies, and it's really the easiest to put on. I showed you the Fibings Pro Dye or oil dye, and those are much more potent dyes, and I just wanted to show you the quick and easy way, and watch how fast this piece is dyed. Now, I'm not saying this is how you should do it. I mean, if you're watching this, it's clearly because you want to do the coffee staining, and go for it. I mean, it's a fun process, definitely. If you want to do that, go for that. But if you have the opportunity of dyeing things properly, well, this is definitely faster. This is definitely going to give you some better results. Now, obviously, the color is way darker than the coffee color, but this was just to show you an example. There are many different colors of dyes out there, so it's up to you to choose whatever you want to do. Here are the 2 that I have coffee dyed, and notice how gorgeously subtle those colors are. I must admit, I wasn't sure when I took them out of the buckets the first few times that I was going to like it as much as I do, but I really do enjoy these colors, and I wish that I could hold on to one long enough to see it patina over time. And you can just see the construction method. So here we go with the 3. On the left you have the natural, the middle is the coffee stained, and on the right is the dye. This is just to show you the difference in colors that you can get, and yes, the 2 first ones are quite subtle, and the dye is much more pronounced. Now, you can get some more subtle dyes, you can dilute the dyes to make sure that the color is much more subtle as well, but I just wanted to show you the different types and methods of dyeing leather that you could find out there. And yes, for those of you wondering, these are surprisingly good little card holders. I'm really loving the construction. I make them myself, and yeah, absolutely loving it. Absolutely loving the results on the coffee dye. I'm not sure I'll do it again, but had a great fun time doing it.
There you go, guys. This is how I made these little card holders, dyeing them or staining them using nothing but coffee. I will be adding them to my Etsy page, so if you want to pick one up, go ahead and hit the links in the description below. Bear in mind that picking up one of my items is also an amazing way of showing your support to my channel and helping me out in general. But if you're not ready to make the jump just yet, you can also just hit the like button, hit the subscribe buttons. These are great ways of helping me out as well. As you can probably see by the state of my beard and my hair, we are in the middle of a lockdown here, and this is a fun little project to do during the lockdown. Barring the cost of the coffee, of course, it won't cost you anything. You don't need to go out and buy anything. I suppose we all have coffee. I hope we all have coffee at home. So definitely do try it out if you want to at home. But if you're looking to do something that's a bit more sustainable, that will be repeatable, I cannot recommend this. I can only recommend going the proper dye route, and there are many options available to you if you do that instead. Nevertheless, guys, I'd love to hear your questions, comments, what's your thoughts in general in the comments section below. I love to read you guys, and I try to answer you all as soon as possible. In the meantime, guys, thanks for watching, thanks for being here, and I'll see you very soon for some more leather craft.